All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We do this live stream every week with my boys, my buddies. This is Brian White of Future Oza, and we've got Hans Nelson from Hans C. Nelson. We all have our own YouTube channels. Let me do it this way. Looks better. So, what the topic today is: what will it take for Tesla stock to do a turnaround? General sentiment is pretty low. People are now getting excited about Nvidia. This is the topic. This is the stock of the century, people are saying. And so, what's happened to Tesla, right? And it's been very much in the doldrums for a long time. And so, we want to talk about, is the FSD version 12, that excitement starting to build? Is that enough to turn the stock around? What about Elon's compensation plan? There's news that we'll share that we've been talking about recently, that there's a potential that at any day, maybe a negotiation could be structured, maybe 6 months from now. What about the Cybertruck? Is there some sort of halo effect? And of course, bots. Is there a demo like that? Could that be enough? And then there might be other ideas here. So let's walk through them. Let's start with you, Hans. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those things are things that we could be looking for. And just from a high level overview, one of the things that I would like to say is that the Warren Buffett quote, buy when there's blood in the streets, is something to keep in mind, that when the sentiment is low, and pretty much everyone is bearish, everyone has written off a company, that actually, it doesn't necessarily mean that that company is a company that you should invest in, but it does mean that if they can turn around the story, that that's a good opportunity. And it feels like that's kind of where we're at right now with Tesla, is that with shiny new objects like Nvidia, who is performing extremely well right now, a lot of the attention has shifted to these companies that are able to, bring in massive profits from this AI boom that's happening today. But since that's become really the consensus trade, I don't know if there's an arbitrage really to be made there in those names. Whereas I think potentially there is an arbitrage opportunity in Tesla, because so many people just don't believe that this is the right opportunity at this moment in time. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things that Tesla has going for it. And there's a lot of potential narratives that are coming about over the next, it's hard to say, is it the next 6 months? Is it the next 12 months? Is it the next 24 months? But, over really the next couple of years, there's a lot of things that we expect that should have, if we are correct about our predictions, a massive impact on the narrative of what are the future earnings potentials of Tesla, and are they close enough for us to really need to start getting in early on those things.
Yeah.
So obviously, like you
Well,
said, cyber.
no, sorry. I want to clarify. I'm not talking about years from now. I want to talk about now. I want
Mhm.
to talk about the next 3 months, 6 months. What can make the Tesla stock turn around? Are you just conceding, Hans, that it's going to be flat for the entire year? Is that what you're saying to me? Wait till next year. Wait
I
till
have
5 years from now.
no idea. So that's the thing about these, if we're trying to predict, I think it's very possible. Like, there are some things that I'm very confident that will happen in the next 2 years. It's very possible they could happen in the next 3 to 6 months. But my ability to be super confident in that 3 to 6 month time frame is a lot fuzzier. And I have the patience to say, I'm confident these things are going to happen in the next 2 years. And therefore, I don't mind waiting if they take a little bit longer than I would hope.
Okay.
So
I mean, go
I,
ahead. Go
I'm
ahead. You
of
go first,
I'm
Brian.
of the opinion. Yes, of course, I am of the opinion that there are some mini catalysts going on right now. We have been in a drought of exciting news. The only thing we've really seen in the last year is announcements without any real promise and the actual first deliveries of the Cybertruck. We're seeing some mini good news right now, and that might be enough to swing sentiment. Cybertruck is not just out, it's ramping. Model 3 Fresh is getting exciting. People are actually getting their hands on it. It is generating interest. And then we've got all these other things. We've got a potential for the end of the overhang from Elon's package. Who knows? It appears that they will be negotiating to see if they can find a solution to make it go away more quickly. But I see a number of things on the short to medium term horizon that could be exciting. If they break ground in Mexico, that would be exciting, and I believe they will within a matter of months. But just the things right now, the Cybertruck and the refreshed Model 3, I think are small things that can give us a small bump that we so desperately need.
Yeah. So here's my thinking, right? So of course, people are very excited about the AI boom. So all the way you know that is if you look at the Mag 7, their stocks have all skyrocketed since last year, continuing now. Nvidia is primarily because they're making huge sales in chips. Tesla has not taken advantage of this AI boom. So what can happen? What needs to happen? Well, I think that there's a moment in time this year, not having to wait till next year. And I think that the Elon's comp package is definitely an overhang, right? That's one thing that it needs to be resolved. And the good news is that the latest news we heard a couple of weeks ago is that the lawyers from the plaintiff and Tesla, they're actually had started the negotiation. They sent a lawyer to the judge to put a stay, and don't move forward with their plans at this point. This is a good sign that there might be a negotiation, and if that happens, that is put to rest, and that a master plan is put in place for Tesla, for Elon, right, for his next comp package. It's going to be about AI. It's going to be about path to AGI. It's going to be about the bot. It's going to be about full self-driving, massive goals. And so that needs to happen first. But this AI narrative has to happen this year. This is the excitement. This is where people want to put their money in. And so if Tesla is able to show the version 12 and that goes out, and so far it's coming out really well, right? So it's just a small numbers. I think we believe it's about 1 to 2% of drivers are getting to experiencing it right now. But the feedback is fantastic. We'll talk about some new videos that was dropped by beta testers that is just mind-blowing in terms of what FSD version 12 can do that 11 couldn't do before. If this continues and that story truly turns into a positive where people are starting to rave about version 12 and that gets spread, that's a way to show that Tesla truly is an AI company. And then the next step is the bot. They drop bot demos. They're an AI company. And then once he clarifies the path of where this is going, when I interviewed Dan Ives and talked to Gary Black, these institutional analysts, and asked them, what will it take for the Wall Street, to actually give value to Tesla as an AI company? And they said that they need to show a monetary path. They need to just explain how Tesla is going to take advantage of that. So if FSD version 12 comes out, that one is clear, right? Because they can show that there's an uptake for FSD, just FSD without robotaxi. They can show that path. And I think if the bot demos more intelligence and then shows that it truly can do useful work, then that will be another path. I don't know to what extent they actually have to show that they're selling it like NVIDIA is, right? Making $60,000. Do you have to wait until that happens? But I think there's still going to be a bump. There could be a turnaround from this negative sentiment, at least. That can happen fairly soon in the next 3-6 months from now. If it's all about, for me, the AI story. If they don't do this, it's like the car story. It's great, but no Cybertruck launch, none of that. If we start, the rave reviews of that, that's not going to move the stock. That's really baked in already. And even if they do the Giga Mexico announcement, that's already baked in. People already know that that's happening. It's got to be something shocks the system, right? A net new announcement of India, maybe that might turn around the sentiment, but I still don't think it's just going to be the auto. I think it's got to be the AI story. What do you guys think about that?
I would say that on that, the V12 videos are doing some pretty exciting things. I was deeply skeptical of version 11 because where I live, it just doesn't work. But I've seen version 11 work well in other places. I've experienced it working well in other places. And V12, if it's doing what we believe it's doing, which is full neural nets, geography agnostic, then it's going to work as well where I live and where you live and where everyone lives as it does in the places where it's had the most training, the most engineering focus. So I think V12 alone, these videos get out. Even though the mainstream media only likes to cover the failures, these get out. Social media is bigger than mainstream media now, and you can only keep a good story down for so long. When it comes to something like India, I believe India would absolutely move the needle. And not just because It would attract new investors in India who get it, but also Indian expats living around the world who have some national pride that they want to invest in it. When we saw Tesla go into China, we saw a lot of Chinese Americans, Chinese Canadians who said, "I get it. I'm going to invest in this company," and that could have been a big deal. So I think that would give both of those would give a big bump in that regard.
You think so, eh? Did you guys see that video that was just released recently about Tesla's potential office in India?
Yes, but I saw that it was a video. I didn't bother watching it because it said it was like some film crew shooting
Yeah.
B-roll, something. I didn't
So
watch
you're,
it.
yeah, okay.
Deeply skeptical.
Yeah, okay.
So on the FSD front, I think that there's some opportunities that they have in front of them to release something that is very interesting, that could potentially have a large mover on the stock. We do need to see some, I think, revenue recognition from that. But if I don't know how much revenue that they are still not recognizing up to this point, um, for the full FSD beta package, and if they are delivering, you know wide adoption or FSD version 12 widely to the entire fleet, at that point there may be, some additional revenue that's been kind of held in reserve that they're recognizing. That could be a bump to the bottom line. And then they have a lot of options where they can kind of signal where this is going. One of those would be that, I don't think that they're going to be to the point anytime in the next 3 to 6 months where they're ready to offer a free trial across the entire fleet in North America. But they could start doing something that's signaling that they're going to move in that direction, where they offer a free trial in return for like referral credits, for example, in kind of expanding the ability, or, a minor reduction in the subscription price from 200 down to 150 as a promotional deal, or something along those lines, to where they are sending a signal to Wall Street and to the investors that they're ready to begin expanding the pool of people that they're trying to attract to the FSD software package, because those types of things, I think, really will get people's juices flowing and have more modeling going on and more investors being interested in, okay, what is the potential for Tesla to monetize this FSD package beyond just the historical way that they have priced it. It's priced at $200 a month, or $12,000, or $15,000, whatever those things are. And, there's a take rate on those, and it's relatively small. And I think that that has been on purpose up to this point. So if they can kind of break that mold that people are using to think about and model the potential of FSD in the future, and say, hey, we're willing to play with pricing, we're willing to play with functionality, and we're going to use those things once the system is safe enough to try and increase the overall SaaS revenue that we can generate from this incredibly valuable software product. And I think that if they do those things and then they can show, hey, these are the results of those changes that we've made, that does have a potential to really be a big mover.
Let me show you guys this video that just dropped this morning from this user called Arthur X. And he shared this, he's playing around with FSE Beta 12. And this maneuver that this car was able to do by itself is pretty shocking. And this could be just another signal that FSE 12 could be much bigger than we all think. So he calls it the one where it parks itself. So he said, after consistently having the car either park itself into a stall if my destination was a parking lot, or pull to the curb out of the roadway if the destination was a street. So this is already happening. The car does these things. And that by itself is already very, very, very kind of impressive, right? It'll park into a stall at a parking lot. It'll pull to the curb. But this is what happened this morning for him. He set the destination to a random alley in downtown Sacramento. The car pulled into the alley, driving slow. Based on my previous experiences earlier in the drive, it appears to be looking for a spot. Seems like it couldn't find one it could fit into. So instead of stopping in the middle of the roadway, like that's how version 11 and previous 11s have versions have performed, the car rerouted itself around the block, went back into the alley. And when it gets back into the alley, it immediately parks into a parking stall instead of, deciding, hey, it's good. Instead of trying to bring this person closer to the destination, I know that there's no parking there. I'm going to go ahead and park even further away. This is exactly what I would have done if I was driving. After seeing there was no parking spots the first time, I would have driven around the block and parked in the first available spot I could find. So this is like pretty shocking, right? Whether or not this is what actually happened is up for debate, but based on the previous 5 or so tests I performed before this, it really does seem like it was looking for a spot to park. I'll post the video. So let's watch the video a little bit, but while we're watching this, what do you guys think? I mean, this is just one example of another behavior by FSC 12 that shocks people to realize that this is, what possibly could be happening, right? It's thinking on its own. I mean, what do you guys think? If there's like more and more of these kinds of videos where it shows that the car's thinking on its own, right?
To me, this is a step change. To me, this is evidence that it might be a lot closer than I realized, and perhaps even about as close as the most optimistic people realized. This could be very exciting.
Yeah, these types of just, sudden solutions to lots of, not just 1 or 2 or 3 issues, but lots and lots and lots of edge cases that previously were unsolved, all at the same time. Like, this is the reason that we moved to nothing but nets in the first place. And it's an incredible piece of proof that this hope that, nothing but nets would solve all these problems at the same time is very much intact.
Yeah, so it went through the alley, didn't find a parking. Now he's not driving the car. The car's driving him, and it has to decide what to do. I need to find you parking because you told me to be here. It decides to go back around because it saw parking earlier.
And also, it went over that speed bump very nicely.
It did. I don't know if we're reading way too much into this, but the car is deciding this on its own to circle the block by itself here, and then it's going to go ahead and find parking, even though it's further away than what he had originally asked for. I mean, yeah, is the car thinking? Is the car deciding this on its own? It's just, this is the kind of stuff you need if you have robo-taxi, right? It needs to be able to be this smart.
Yeah.
So now it's going around the block.
If these videos get out on social media and people don't look at this and say, this might be closer than we realize, there are people who will get this, who will understand it.
Okay, so now deciding to go back into the alley again, but this time it knows that there was a parking spot that he had seen earlier, and it's going to go ahead and take that. Unbelievable. It's doing this on its own. What is this? It's actually doing this is crazy. Okay. So, when we watched the original live stream that Elon did way back when, remember, Hans, we were watching it. The moment that you were shocked most about was the moment when the car reached the destination. In that case, Elon was saying it was supposed to be Mark Zuckerberg's house, but the car decided to park itself, right? It got off the middle of the street, parked it in the curb like a human would. And that was the first indicator that no one coded that. The car knew by watching all the videos of other humans that that's what it's supposed to do when it's reached the destination, find a proper parking spot. It just did it on its own. That is that's a neural net learning on its own, the AI figuring things out, right? So that was amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the key there that you said. No one coded that. And so there's all sorts of situations that exist on the roadways that would take forever for someone to be like, oh yeah, this is a situation that we need to write code to solve. And if they don't have to do that, if they can just feed enough video, and then the system will learn how to actually park or drive or whatever the situation is like a human, then you don't have to figure out what all those edge cases are. Like you get a lot of the nines in the March of Nines for essentially free. And that's been the hardest part for us to solve up to this point.
Okay, so what's the chances, guys, that FSD by itself could be enough to turn the doldrum of the stock now, like in the next 3 to 6 months? So let's say, I know that Brian and I talked about this, right? It's all about probabilities. Okay, so we're not saying it's going to happen, but it's also a non-zero chance that it could happen. So where do you guys fall in probabilities? Like assuming, right? So first of all, FSD 12 has to continue to perform well. It cannot have any critical mistakes. It's got to be able to solve edge cases that people have not been able to solve before in version 11. There has to be this general feeling, not just by the drivers, the FSD beta testers, which is few in numbers. It's got to go out into larger consumers and the investors to recognize, okay, this is the path. It's on its way. It's going to happen. I'm going to put my money in now. I'm getting excited about Tesla again. What's a probability that that will happen?
So on V12, I'm going to say that we don't know yet. By the way, that video is still playing, Herbert.
Oh, sorry, guys. There.
We don't know yet because we haven't seen enough videos. It's not out wide enough. Jeff points out in the comments, FSD 12 is clearly less dumb. That's a big deal. We've seen that is a big deal. That is the objective that we're looking for.
I like
and
it.
It's going to. So if the videos keep rolling out, if it's rolled out wider to other states, to other cities, and it's performing like we're seeing here, the odds of it moving the stock a little bit, very, very high. And the more you want it to move, the lower the odds go. So I'd say in the next 3 to 6 months, if this is as good as it looks, I wouldn't be surprised to see more than a 10% bump out of it. But 10% is what we can
I guess
often
the
see in a
problem
day
is
anyway.
that people believe that the current stock price today is already got built in robotaxi or FSD in it, right? It's auto and then there's FSD. So if this is becoming more and more likely, is that going to cause a jump in the stock, or maybe it's already built in?
Well, I would say for retail, it's built in. I'd say for retail investors, maybe level 5 could be built in already. But when it comes to institutional investors, I believe they're counting very little of it. I believe they throw darts at dartboards and try and guess what the stock price is, and they have no real idea of worth. And we've seen that because price targets are all over the place and arbitrary, and they often update them just because the stock has moved so much they just need to recalibrate. So I think there's a very good chance that institutional investors could see V12 being a success and say, this is the company that's on the forefront. This is the solution is now within sight. If the solution is within sight and you've already got a fleet with millions of vehicles ready to switch it on, this becomes the only investment you would consider.
Yeah.
As far
I
as
like
I'm
that,
concerned.
Brian. Morgan Stanley, Adam Jonas just had a lunch, right, with a lot of other institutional investors. I think there was 20, 30 people there. And he did a survey, and he said that only 30% of them thought that this Tesla stock has AI built into it and that it will rise this year. Very, very bearish. And so you're right. If this FSD starts to make waves, even just in institutional investors realizing, okay, these guys have something, maybe that will rise, and maybe more investors investment will come in.
And I like the point that Brannigan made as well, that, a licensing deal is another thing that could really have a large impact on the perception of the quality of FSD and, Tesla's ability to monetize that moving forward. But I think that licensing deal becomes a lot more likely if we see a lot of hype from users around the quality of FSD. That I don't think that someone like a Ford is going to feel as much pressure to get a deal like that done until they see, wow, this system really is performing out in the wild at a very, very high level. And so I think that becomes much more likely the wider we see FSD roll out, the more coverage that it's getting, the more positive performance that we see.
Okay. All right. So FSD drop version 12. It's just 1 to 2% of people. So it's way too early. But so far, the early signs from yesterday and this morning are all very, very positive. It drives much more smoother. People who are passengers who previously would not want to be on in a FSD version 11 and before, they're now saying that they actually like this drive, and that makes a difference. And so let's cross our fingers. This is happening. So the next one would be the bot, right? To me, I've always been saying, and I still believe, okay, so people are saying this, right? Nothing's going to happen to Tesla stock for the rest of the year because they're looking at auto. They're looking at auto and they're looking at, we'll talk about recovering gross margins, what that could do, but let's assume it stays flat for the year like everybody believes. There's no excitement because Cybertruck is going to be low numbers. Gen 2 won't be until next year. The bot, some people are saying, well, because he said that it's going to be shipped next year and some numbers of Optimus will be shipped next year, that he said, okay, let's assume nothing happens. I think that that's the wrong way to think about it. Since January, we're literally just 2 months into this year, there has been massive announcements and demos on the bot industry, right? You have figures showing that their bot can now do autonomously manipulating a Keurig machine. They've announced a partnership with BMW. You've got Digit already working with Amazon. They're already building their factory. You had Tesla themselves, which released in December, their Gen 2. They showed that they can now, teleoperate it to be able to, it has the dexterity to defold clothes. You've got Aloha Project, which are these 3 PhD students from Stanford funded by Google DeepMind, showing that very simply with very cheap bots with just teleoperation, if you do 50 teleoperations, the bot can now do it autonomously with 80% accuracy, various tasks. Every one of these are being dropped. Tesla's going to continue to drop demos. Every single month, you'll see something new. I think the next one is going to be a brains kind of a demonstration of autonomous work. Hopefully it's in the factory. Could that turn around the stock? Could that be something that turns around the sentiment? Because the bot is humanoid. You can see that it's very functional. You can already see the hand movements. You can see everything. And so people are just waiting. Can this do real actual work? But it's easy for people to understand right away that once you showed it to me that it can. And then, there's going to be a lot of excitement. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm going to say the same thing I said before, which is retail investors are already very excited, perhaps peak excitement. Once you're all in, there's no more in you can go, except a couple bucks here and there. Once it's actually doing something. So like the Semi, you can understand it because PepsiCo and Frito-Lay are using it. You can see the use case. You can see the real world data. You can get it. Until the bots, in my opinion, are in an application that is honestly outside the company. Inside the company, you don't always get the full picture, but outside the company, then you've got a chance for institutional investors to look at it and wrap their head around it and actually model for the benefits that it can provide in the not even 10-year horizon, but in the 6-month to 12-month horizon. And they will, and I suspect a number of institutional investors will want to get in on that. This is already a company that institutional investors are underweight on. Most companies have a lot more institutional investors than Tesla does. And this could be something to push them over that hump and say, yeah, I know we didn't want to buy because we missed the good prices. These are the good prices. Now is the time. So I think they just have to get some practical applications out in the real world to make it happen.
And then one of the other things to be excited about is that Tesla seems to be committed to giving us at least one video update on the progress of Optimus every month, sometimes more. And so the likelihood that one of those videos gets to a point where it is showing something that is very exciting, it gets to be higher and higher the deeper into the year that we get. And I mean, I've been extremely excited by a number of the things that they've shown already. So I think that, between the overall general sentiment of people starting to get excited about the humanoid robot field and the progress of AI and the ability of AI to have a massive impact on that much sooner than we expected, plus just Tesla continuing to show rapid progress and show not only, do they have a great platform, they have great mechanics, but they are also moving at a rate that is as fast or faster than the other teams that we see kind of in the field. And then with their manufacturing expertise, just the knowledge kind of in the background of people's minds, that Tesla will be able to create a much larger fleet of bots much sooner than their other competitors, then that is something that should be very exciting to investors. Like
Mhm.
Brian was saying, how fast does that sink in the minds of institutional investors specifically? Well, that's kind of hard to predict just because they can be kind of dense. But it is something that we as retail investors can see much more clearly.
Yeah. Okay. So I will push back on you, Brian, because I know first of all, if I did ask this question at a space yesterday, 9 out of 10 people say exactly what you are. Until it's actually in a factory, until you show that it truly can displace an actual worker permanently, is what Jeff Lutz was saying. That's when investors will invest. So I do not agree with that. I still think that we are incredible. First of all, when you heard Elon say that we might be able to ship some number of Optimus next year, that was amazing. That's way ahead of my schedule where I thought they would be. If they are going to ship Optimus next year, that means they're going to start building them this year, okay, in a production line. And we already know from hiring that they're already doing that now, that they're already building the production line. Um, so I just think that the bot is different as opposed to other products because this one is humanoid. So people can actually see demos of it and can actually understand the usefulness of this. Um, and I think demos could go viral, very easily go viral. And then the other thing that's missing with the bots right now is the ability to speak to it. And so, there was an Easter egg that Elon posted on X just a few days ago, right? I don't know if you guys saw this one. He posted the Starman, which is the roadster that's currently flying out in space right now. And then he posted a little tiny toy robot floating past it. And the words that says, "Don't panic." I mean, and it says, it's Grok, right? So the idea being that maybe they're going to implement Grok into the robots and then Grok into the cars. And so now you can talk to to them, and they'll talk back to you with a voice. That is, this is not some inanimate machinery that Tesla's selling or product. This is humanoid that can actually do work. And I think people that can go viral depending on what they show them. I mean, obviously, the chances are low. Again, we're talking probabilities, but it is the thing I think that could turn the stock around. People can quickly see that Tesla is an AI company. It's going to be the bot. That's how you show people that we're an AI company.
Well, I agree with the 90% of people who disagreed with you.
I love you. Okay, so let's talk Elon's compensation package, right? I think most of us agree that the lawsuit against Elon and him losing that ability that they rescinded the comp package from 2018. This now puts this in kind of a confusion, uncertainty, and people don't like to invest in anything that there's a lot of uncertainty. And when your CEO, the most important person in your company, has this where his previous comp package has been rescinded and he's not even being offered something that's out there. So if that is resolved, do you guys think it's a massive overhang that I've been calling it? That's one of the reasons why it's kind of sitting there flat and everyone else is rising, but Tesla's stock?
I agree. I agree that it is an overhang. It's uncertainty, and like you said, the market does not like uncertainty. There was a comment much earlier, where someone said, "Relax, Elon's not going anywhere."
Right,
and
I saw
I'm
that.
not saying that he is. I'm saying that it's an overhang. There are question marks. We don't know how the comp plan will be settled, resolved, whatever. We don't know what award this crazy 7, 8, 9 shareholder wants or expects. I think, and I've said this before, the most fair thing would be to purchase back his 9 shares from him at full
Oh, no,
2017
wait, Brian.
prices.
I need to clarify that. The guy who had the 9 shares, he's already made a deal with the lawyers. All he's getting is $10,000. The lawyers just pay him $10,000 to put your name here.
Right.
This is 100% about the lawyer fees, what they want to get out of this.
He's
Billions
a
and billions of
professional.
dollars.
He's a professional plaintiff. Lucky to have no soul and be able to do such things.
They just picked
So,
somebody that says, if
yeah,
I pay you
anybody.
10,000, would you be willing to put your name on this thing? That's all
Yeah.
this was.
Yeah, effortless. So that whole thing, it will be resolved. I don't know what the settlement would be. And it's crazy. The idea that Tesla could agree to a settlement where they say, look, we'll pay some legal fees and now the comp plan is legal is absurd. The whole thing
Yeah,
is
that's
crazy. But I do think there's an overhang. I do think having it in the past would help. And in large part because then we would get to see the next comp plan. We would get to see the next milestones. We'd get to see, look, here's where we're actually going. And if you want to make sure that Elon never makes another penny, all you have to do is count on these things being unrealistic. And the more unrealistic they are, the more excited I'm going to be. Because he's going to, if anybody could hit him, it's going to be him. And that would create the potential for the new run-up. So I'm excited for the issue to be resolved and the next comp plan to be at least considered, if not announced.
Yeah, my very scientific analysis says that it's about 10 to 15% of an overhang. But I totally agree with Brian as far as what I'm most excited for, 10 to 15% really insignificant in the grand scheme of my hopes for the execution of Tesla. So, and there's always going to be things that are moving it up and down by around that percentage. And so it's going to be hard, even if that does happen, to attribute, okay, which parts of the move in the price were due to this versus that versus this. But the goals on the next comp package, that's going to be really incredible to see, what is Elon shooting for? How insane
Yeah.
does it seem? And what are the implications of those goals?
And that could be the thing that makes the stock skyrocket because they know that Elon will achieve that, right? And that's going to be very exciting. So Paul asked this question: why not just buy the lawyer's firm cheaper than the settlement?
Hilarious. I'm
But
sure
that
it'd
is-
be illegal, but it's hilarious.
But that is exactly what's actually happening, right? So the settlement is between the law firm and Tesla. And the law firm says, I want you to pay me $2 billion. They're negotiating right now, which is very good news. And if Tesla agrees to it, right? We talked about this in a previous show, whether or not Elon would actually agree to this. But if he does, they go away. They just pull off their lawsuit and this is done. It's just terrible. But so yeah, if there is a master plan, I keep calling it a master plan, but actually what it is a comp plan for Elon that is amazing, right? So they go, we'll pay you a ton of shares if you hit $5 trillion market cap. And then Elon has been saying, right, for the last, 6 months, he's been saying that I see a path for us to be larger than Apple and Saudi Aramco. The reason he's been saying that is he has already been negotiating with the board about his new comp plan. And so let's say that it gets to 5 trillion. Because of his past performance with his previous comp plan, rescinded or not, that's going to be a bump, right? Like that would be like get everybody super excited. And he will then say, here's how I'm going to get us there. Robotics AI company.
Exactly. When you and I were talking on tomorrow's show that we've already recorded, or maybe it was today's, about the path to 20 million. Can it be done? And what I keep saying to people is Toyota can't do it, Ford and GM can't do it, Volkswagen can't do it because they don't have a plan. Their odds are zero. Tesla's odds are non-zero. That's better than zero. Their odds may still be low, and we can debate how low they are, but they do have odds. No odds are bad. Some odds are better. So and we're not talking like 1 in a million. We're not talking lottery odds. So this is the same kind of thing. If we can see what the roadmap is, if we can see what the objectives actually are, and if they're as exciting as we expect them to be, as impossible as the last two plans were, I think people will recognize, come hell or high water, he's going to do it. Even if he has to stop posting mean things on X for 5 seconds, he might consider it.
Okay.
Yeah, that reminded me of just the saying, success is a possible outcome for Tesla. At this point, success in
He said
EVs
that.
is not
Yeah.
a possible outcome for GM.
I hate it when people say there's a non-zero chance. Okay. Yeah.
I'm
Everything's a
right
non-zero
here,
chance.
Herbert. No. For Volkswagen to hit 20 million by 2030, there is a 0%
I know
chance.
you said zero chance. I just like when people go, there's a non-zero chance that Tesla will hit 10 trillion. It's like, oh man, that's not helpful.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk. Okay. Let's talk about recovering margins, right? So many people still believe, right? The vast majority believe that Tesla's an auto company, is valued as an auto company. The reason why it's $200 now and 700 billion dollars worth market cap is because they believe the Tesla EV company is leading as an EV company and that it's going to take over, and that's why they do it. They don't put a lot of for a bot. There's no anything out there. It's just a little bit more about that. Okay, a little bit more on what we talked about with autonomy and FSD, right? So people think that this year that there's going to be flat margins. They're projecting $2 earnings per share next year. On it, I think that's the institutional analyst average. And in fact, some people think that there might be further price cuts and because of the economy or whatever, and then they're going to see this fall even further margins. What if it's the opposite? There's a number of people, experts in the field, who are saying that actually there's going to be continued cost of goods reduction. We might actually see recovering earnings per share. If there's interest rates cuts, they might actually, keep the prices flat. They don't need to cut it anymore. If anything, maybe even raise prices. So what do you guys think? What happens if there is recovering margins and people start seeing this in the next quarter? Okay, Tesla's stabilized. That should move the stock, right? That should change the sentiment, right? I think that's been overdone, right? People are thinking Tesla's nothing's going to happen to the stock, nothing's going to happen to auto this year. I'm out. And I think that if they show that Tesla's actually growing this year, what do you guys think? Well, they didn't give guidance. What if they said, yeah, we're on track to be 2.2 million? Is that going to be something that would move the stock up?
I don't think 2.2 million would move the stock. If the margins improve next quarter, it would of course help. If they improve the quarter after that, it would of course help. A big bump that I'm expecting to see is some of the unpaid invoices for megapacks rolling in. The more megapacks they make, the more revenue from the megapacks they will have received as a percentage of the total. Right now they're in the early days of huge numbers, and a lot of those deliveries have not yet paid, but they will and soon, and those could cover some of the falling margins on the automotive side. But I'd be very curious to hear what you have to say, Hans. And before we go, I do still want to talk Cybertruck.
Oh yeah, we will.
Yeah, I mean, I
Sure.
think that one way to look at this is the fact that, from my perspective, it is inevitable that Tesla's margins will recover massively. The question is, how long does it take for the auto gross margins X credits to do that? Because, like Brian mentioned, we've got things like energy that are coming in to support the overall margin profile of the business. But people really are interested in, what is the outlook of the automotive business itself, and it is going to be highly dependent on interest rates. We are entering into an economy where we are seeing a credit crunch. There is a contraction in the lending supply. The last time we saw this was the 2008 financial crisis. And, there is a possibility that the Fed is going to be as slow in reducing interest rates as they were in increasing them to begin with. And so we really could, there's a non-zero chance that
Mhm.
we could be actually, heading into a real tough time economically this year because of high interest rates, a credit crunch, just lack of confidence on the part of the consumer, and overall, really just a tough recessionary environment, which is one of the reasons why Elon has been very cautious in his capital expenditures and has kept, a large bag of cash on the sidelines, just in case we do end up in a situation like that. So if that ends up being the case, I don't think we're going to see any margin expansion this year. But I would say that it's possible, low chances, maybe 10 to 25% chance that that's the outlook this year. So which leaves 75%, on the most, if I said it was 25% likely that that was going to happen, then 75% chance that something else is going to happen. A big chunk of that is going to be pretty much the same as today. But on the optimistic side, which I would say is maybe 30 to 40% likely, is that because we are really challenged right now to service the national debt, that the Fed will in fact reduce interest rates sooner rather than later. And as they reduce those interest rates, that will really set the economy on fire, and that we will actually be climbing out of this hole quickly. And if we have reduced interest rates and increase or decrease cogs on the part of Tesla, and we have the Cybertruck deliveries that are bringing a lot more attention to Tesla, and through that attention they're able to actually increase their prices for the vehicles instead of decrease their prices. Like I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but it's definitely possible that for the rest of this year Tesla could be increasing their prices and decreasing their cogs, which would be huge for gross margins. And that, based on them beginning to do these localized advertising campaigns, they are continuing to get more and more comfortable with how to increase their demand in ways that are not necessarily as compressive to the pricing of their vehicles. And so, like, I would say that is as likely, if not more likely, than the recessionary scenario. And these are just branching possibilities that investors really should be prepared for this year.
Yeah, and I think their probability. So the way I heard what you just said is that you think there's a low probability that margins will improve this year, and I completely disagree. It's the opposite. Jeff Lutz has been saying that he sees cost of goods completely continuing to reduce. On average, it's been 3% per
I should
year.
clarify then, because what I said was like 25 to 30% likelihood that we will increase pricing and reduce COGS. So that's like
Oh, good.
massively increasing margins.
I think it's
And then
higher.
like
Yeah,
the middle
I think it's
section is
higher
kind of like,
probability.
yeah,
Okay,
reduce like
I think it's.
maintaining
I think
pricing
it's
or reducing
okay.
pricing in line with COGS to where, margins are doing okay, maybe slightly increased. Like I think that's the middle part of the distribution curve of possible outcomes is basically
Okay.
exactly what Jeff said. Like costs coming down, prices coming down, but not as much as costs, and
Yes.
therefore margins
Yeah.
expanding a little bit.
It's an election year too, Hans. So election
Yep.
year, there's money going to flow. They're not going to. They're going to do everything they can to make sure there's no recession. Usually, election years, a
Yep.
high probability. We're talking about percentage chances, like 89, 85%, 89% year. A stock market rises on an election year, right? So the chances are on our side. The margins will actually improve. And I like that you said what you did because you guys are part of the investors and you'll be shocked, right? If margins improve. And if you're shocked, then that's what the stock needs something of a shocker. So let's talk about that with just Cybertruck, right? And other things that could surprise. So Cybertruck right now, Brian, and you want to talk about it, but I'm like, for me, this is like Cybertruck is nothing. Like it's okay. It's a very important product. It's a very successful product. It's a crazy, incredible product, but it's gonna be low numbers this year. So it's not gonna move the stock this year, no matter how excited people are with it. Are you
And
saying
my
that there might be some shocking thing about it? Yeah.
and my response to that is, first of all, how dare you? So it is the most exciting vehicle that has been
Yes.
released in a generation. It
Agreed.
is it is a road vehicle that is still a showstopper at car shows. It
Agreed.
is a halo, and it is working as a halo. And an example of that is last Sunday, the Tigard showroom in Oregon had one that us folks from the owners club were allowed to go and actually get inside of.
Mm.
I invited as my plus one Lightning Ryan Fulcher, who owns a Ford Lightning, and he came with, and I got him to take a test drive. The test drive line was nonstop throughout this event. It's not nonstop all day, just through the event. People who are already big fans of Tesla are test driving the new Model 3, the new Model S. People who are not looking for a car today are getting in one to take a test drive. Some of those convert. That is absolutely a halo. That moves units. That's why they put these events together. It's not because they need people like me to see the inside of a Cybertruck. I mean, people like me, they do, but I mean, the greater public, those folks can wait their turn. No. But it's going to be, it is a halo. When you see it in front of showrooms in China, people go to the showrooms. When you see it I'm trying to remember all the other places we've seen it. Japan, I think, maybe is getting one. Germany is going to have one on display in Stuttgart fairly soon. And people will flock from hours away to see it. And it'll put Tesla back in your head. Maybe you'll take a test drive while you're there. It is absolutely a halo. And the second part to the Cybertruck is we're watching the numbers grow. For the longest time, we'd see 20 a day, 30 a day on the Giga Texas site, many of them in the outbound lot. And then we got to the point where we were seeing 50 a day and then 80. And today I saw it was 100. There were 100 Cybertrucks out there. Now that's only, 36,500 a year if you're doing 100 a day. But that's just the beginning. We're still in February here. So the idea that they could move the 90,000 that they expect this year or go well past that is no longer all that crazy. We know Panasonic and I think LG are working on 4680s to supply to Tesla. I would assume that these would be going into the Cybertruck. They would probably not be a tabless design, but a 3-tab design is what Panasonic patented. So those would probably be for the rear-wheel drive version rather than the Dual or the Beast. So it is a lot of excitement and opportunity, and this is a very visible, very present product that is on everyone's mind, and it's expanding brand awareness.
Agree with
I
you.
like
That's a
what
halo effect. But can you tell me, do you think that this quarter that we're going to actually have higher sales of Tesla vehicles, all vehicles, than projected because of the halo effect?
I can't tell you that. I don't know yet. I
So
don't know.
I think the impact is not going to be on units sold. I think that Tesla's going to sell roughly the same number of units either way. The question is, what type of pricing action do they have to take in order to move those units? And so if we see, relatively stable pricing throughout the quarter and we don't have to do anything crazy as we get into March in order to move that last bit of metal as they're really kind of doing that last push, then I think that would be an indication that the Cybertruck demand halo is impacting Tesla's ability to sell the same number of vehicles at higher margins. I did want to say, I really appreciated the comment that Jeff made about like Cybertruck is Tesla's marketing budget this year. Like it just is so much earned media, so much attention is drawn to it, and so much awareness of Tesla and the Tesla brand and Tesla vehicles. And it's going to drive awareness to Tesla's pricing as well. If people are coming in, they're like, this truck looks amazing. I love it. And then they look at the price tag, they're like, okay, I can't afford it yet this year. Like I need to wait for the, $50,000 version that's going to be available a year or 2 years from now, whenever that is. But then they look and see, hey, wait a second, I can take a Model Y home today for under $40,000 after tax credits. Heck yeah, like I'll drive that for the next 2 years while I wait for my suburban Cybertruck. I think that those types of things are highly likely. I did want to ask Brian on you said that you think that the LG and Panasonic 4680s might be for the Cybertruck. Are you saying that on the earnings call we heard Drew specifically say that their 4680 ramp was ahead of their needs for Cybertruck and they hope to keep it that way for Cybertruck and future vehicle programs? Do you think that he was being inclusive of those third-party 4680 cells in that comment?
Yes. So the first part of it is they are ahead right now. They were ahead something like 12 days or 14 days. But That was when the production was much lower than it is today. Half, a third, maybe a quarter of what the production is today. It's possible that they're now down to 2 days. It's possible that the battery lines have sped up. But if they could get an infinite supply of 4680s today, then I think they would crank up the production speed on the Cybertruck line to match. Because I think even though they're well matched to it, I think it is the bottleneck for them. So that is why. And I don't know when those 4680 lines from third parties will come online. It could be that those are just what's needed to get the 2170s out of the Model Ys that are made in Texas. It could be that they want to get those back to, because if they can get those back to US made cells, that frees up the Nevada cells to go in the Semi or into other products in Fremont, so that all the cars qualify for the incentives and not just some of the cars.
Okay, so let's summarize what we've talked about today, right? The three ways that possibly Tesla can have a U-turn and massive comeback. We talked about FSD version 12. If this comes out, so far early signs are looking like this is exciting. If it continues to be exciting, if they roll it out further wide, more people get their butts in the seats, experience full self-driving in a very comfortable way, in a very safe way, this could be a sentiment turnaround for the stock, and people get excited about it. They see Tesla as an AI company. Another one was the bot. They can do more demos. Every month there's a demo. Could that turn around people's minds about what Tesla stock and what Tesla is all about? Not just a car company, but a bot robotics AI company. And the third one we talked about was Elon's comp package. If that comes in and they've announced a negotiation and that's resolved, plus combined with that is some, like somebody put down shock and awe compensation plan, saying that Tesla's going to, we're on path to become a $5 trillion company, a $10 trillion company at some point in the future. Here's how we're going to get there. What's your probability that you think for each one of them? Which is most likely?
Over the very short term, I'd say version 12, because that's something that we'll be able to see before the quarter ends. Once the quarter ends, it could be the production number, and then in the middle of the following month, the end of the following month, it could be the margins, but I don't expect it to be the margins. What do you think, Hans?
Yeah, I would just say the biggest one to watch this year has to be FSD, just because of its like the size of impact that FSD can have in the medium term is bigger than the impact of any of the other ones individually. I think that, the other things could definitely happen. They could have an impact, but whatever that impact is, it would pale in comparison to what we would see. If people get to be convinced this year that FSD V12 gets us anywhere even remotely close to robotaxis, that is such a monumental shift in the valuation of the company that it just makes everything else, look like small potatoes. Obviously, bot over the long term can eclipse that, but I don't expect any epiphanies in the market about the size of that opportunity this year.
Okay. I still am clinging to, you're kind of convincing me a little bit, because you reminded me that Tesla's a car company in the minds of 99% of people. And so the FSD kind of transformation of this car company is a lot easier for them to understand. But I tell you, the bot is something that is just such a massive market and it's also something that can go viral in terms of the consumer view. And what's happening right now in the world is AI. People are understanding that that's the thing. That's where money's flowing, right? And so if Tesla is now seen as a robotics AI company, that's when the money starts flowing. And I think that it's not.
I would say
today,
even
so the chances are.
Even taking your logic right there,
Mm-hmm.
of all the money that's being thrown at AI right now, what percentage of it is AI robotics, and what percentage of it is NVIDIA and AI chips and LLMs and those types of technologies? And at least from my vantage point,
NVIDIA. It's 100% NVIDIA.
And so that's where the market is assigning the most value right now. And so, like, the likelihood that the general market will assign value to Tesla based on humanoid robotics is going to grow in proportion to that overall topic capturing the hearts and minds of the overall market. And right now, we just haven't seen that yet. Like Figure AI is not raising $7 trillion. Sam Altman is trying to raise $7 trillion for, basically to compete with
Yeah.
NVIDIA and TSMC and these types of players. And so that's really where, the market where the market is focused right now. So
yeah, I guess my argument to you would be what happens when money flows, right? It always flows first to the tools that people need to buy to be created, and then eventually where's the real money to be made? The real money is in actual AI. It's an actual useful work by robots. And so it's just a natural thing. I'm going to go and put my money where
I
it's
agree
already
with you.
selling today. But where's the real market? The real market is here. So they have to just understand that it's real instead of just a hype cycle. That people believe we're in a hype cycle right now. And that could be true. But once they realize it's, that's the question mark. Are we in a hype cycle and really AI cannot really improve your productivity, can't really improve? That's where I'm saying to you that robotics AI, it's so much clearer for people to see that is useful, that is going to be, something that can really translate. Restaurants, people can see it already, helping out a restaurant. Okay, so those three we talked about. What about a surprise? Is there anything, a stock always moves when there's a surprise, something that people weren't expecting? What could be? FSD license. Now, the earnings call, Elon threw cold water to that, right? It sounded like there is no one out there that's asking or is close to signing an, FSD licensing with them. Is there anything else that you guys think could be a surprise?
Product unveiling. If we get to see the compact or hear about the compact, I expect to see that sometime this year, realistically the very end of it. But even if it's leaked images of something that's real and not just drawings, that would I believe move it. I believe that would move the stock.
We could finally have Roadster deliveries. That would be cool.
I don't think that's not going to move. That's not going to move the stock.
Well,
that won't move the stock.
That's true, though. It wouldn't move the stock. It would be very exciting. I'd love to see it. I appreciate your optimism, but
yeah.
Hey, that's why I said I put it in the category of surprise.
It still won't move the stock.
That would be surprising, but it would be a surprise.
Okay. Well, thank you guys very much. We do this every week, every Wednesday. Thank you for joining us for our live stream. Appreciate everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.